Hi everyone, hope you have an amazing day. This is FC with CappersDirect.com here to give you guys an early preview into UFC 282. You guys have been asking for a little more FC time, a little more intimate FC time. I'm here for you guys. We're going to talk about UFC 282 from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. That's going down on December 10th at 6 p.m. So sit back because we're going to preview all these fights right now. Let's go. Now let's get into this exciting pay-per-view, the last pay-per-view of the year, Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev. And since this is the last pay-per-view, let's go ahead and hit this one from the back. Pause. The Polish Power, Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev. All right, guys, this is going to be your main event for the title. Jan Blachowicz, just the former champion, is going to come in here. It's going to be kind of experience versus hype, right? We have Jan Blachowicz on one side. He's 39 years old. He's going to be a little bit longer. He had a pretty good camp for this camp. He's going to go ahead and depend on his power. He's the Polish Power. He's a counter striker, a little bit low volume, but I think seeing him in this camp, I think he's going to do something a little bit different, but on the other side, we have Magomed Ankalaev. Magomed Ankalaev is coming at you from Russia, 18-1. This guy is the hype, right? He's a striker. Solid guy overall. A lot of people just see him as a striker, but he does have grappling underneath him. He can wrestle. He can go for takedowns, especially if he feels that the pressure is too much. And he's another guy. He's a counter striker. He's another striker. Kind of like Jan Blachowicz, he has power. He's going to be a little bit taller, but he's going to be lacking in the range department just a slightly. Look, this fight's going to be a banger, right? Main event, Jan Blachowicz wants his belt back. He wants to solidify himself as the guy, right? He enjoyed being the champion. When he was the champion, a lot of perks came his way from his home country. And really, he inspired a lot of people. He is motivated to get this belt back. This is going to be a great matchup. And let me just quickly say a quick disclaimer into going into some of these matchups. I may say that I like Magomed Ankalaev. I may say that I like Jan Blachowicz. It doesn't mean anything necessarily. It doesn't mean I'm going to have a bet on them. Those write-ups come out on Friday, Saturday, sometimes Saturday morning. We need to watch the weigh-ins. We need to make sure that they're hydrated well after the weigh-ins. We need to make sure that their weight cut was well. So this doesn't necessarily mean we have a bet one way or another. We're just going to give you a quick preview of every fight here. And I mean, this is an amazing card, an amazing pay-per-view. So we might as well just preview every single fight, give you guys a little taste of everything and what's come for the end of the week, get you guys excited. So let's get further into it. Now in the co-main event, we have an exciting fight. We have Paddy the Baddy Pimblett versus Jared Flash Gordon. The hype train, Paddy Pimblett, is back. A lot of money coming in on this guy. Who is Paddy Pimblett, right? Is he ready for this fight? You know, the UFC's been sort of babying Paddy Pimblett. These fighters, they don't necessarily make a ton of money right at the beginning. And Paddy is in that camp. But Paddy ended up getting a very big sponsorship and a lot of hype behind him because he speaks well on the mic. And in turn, the UFC said, okay, well, it's time to put you up against better competition. And in comes in Jared Flash Gordon. Jared has a ton of UFC experience. Jared, he fought at 145 and he fights at 155. I like him better maybe at 145, but he cuts a ton of weight. At 155, he just seemed to struggle with the power that was coming his way. It had a lot to do with his camp. It had a lot to do with his head movement. It's something that he's worked on. But in the end of the day, Jared Gordon is a wrestler with a ton of UFC experience, a ton of good guys on his record. Now, UFC experience is good and bad. It's good in the fact that it gives Jared Gordon the ability. He's been there before, right? He knows what to expect. It's bad because Jared Gordon has been taking punches and punishment from people who are UFC level, where Paddy Pimblett did a lot of his fighting in a lesser organization where he was just smashing people. He had a few tough fights in there too, but a lot of times he was just smashing through people, where Jared's record has sort of been accumulated through attrition and through a lot of pain in fighting big UFC experience. So this is going to be a crazy fight. 155, is Jared Gordon going to be able to hold up to what Paddy's going to do? Paddy's going to come out like a bat out of hell. At the end of the day, he's a grappler who has a ton of submissions, and Jared Gordon is a wrestler who is also a BJJ guy. He's been submitted in the past, but he can hold his own on the ground. At the end of the day, it's the wrestling acumen of Jared Gordon where he can take people down and hold them down that is going to give him the best path of victory, where Paddy is going to have a lot of advantages. Paddy is going to be able to strike a little bit more than normal. Jared Gordon doesn't necessarily know what kind of striking Paddy has. Paddy is growing every single time he goes to the cage. He does this thing, man. If you go Google Paddy Pimblett, you're going to see a lot of fat pictures of Paddy Pimblett because Paddy ends up really gaining weight in the offseason and then really working hard to take that weight off. Now, it's in that working hard where he ends up getting better. He goes out there and he tries to learn new things with his striking, and you see his body transform and his body get a lot skinnier. And he's learning a lot every single time he's has these massive weight cuts that he has to do, and he has to lose all this weight. He does it in a fun way by learning new things, and in turn, I think it's translated pretty well in the cage. Now, is he ready for this level of competition? We'll have to find out this week, but it's going to be a good fight. It's a hype fight. Obviously, it's a co-main event for a reason, and I think we see some fireworks in this fight, so look forward to it for sure. Now, let's get into your next fight. Now, I really like this next fight. This next fight is coming at you from the middleweight division. We have Darren Till versus Dricus du Plessis. Guys, Darren Till is coming in here on some kind of a losing streak. I mean, if you look at it, he's coming in off of two losses, right, back to back. He had a win there. The win was against Calvin Gastelum. That was a split decision that could have gone either way. So really, the guy could be 0-5 in his last 5 fights. But he's coming in here, 2 losses. I'm telling you, this guy was the guy. He was the man. And then the George Masvidal fight came about. Before that George Masvidal fight, I had an inkling that Till's chin may have been a little suspect. And I didn't know if it was due to his weight cuts, because he was cutting a massive amount of weight. The guy was massive at the time, fought for the title. I mean, he was just a huge hype job, right? That George Masvidal fight came about, and I remember betting a ton on George Masvidal. And I he was a huge underdog, and I just remember Darren Till's got a suspect chin, and man, George can take the punishment. And if George can take the punishment that Till's going to dole out, I'm going to guess that Till is not a good nail. Like, the guy can hammer. Not a great nail, right? So, you looking at that fight, I remember betting everything on Masvidal and thinking, all right, here we go. Masvidal goes in there. He's doing his little bouncy Muay Thai thing. You know, he's in there. And then Darren Till hits him with this left hand from hell. Drops Masvidal. I'm thinking, oh, shit, it's over, right? It's done. And then Masvidal just pops back up. Masvidal hits him, and Darren Till goes out, and Masvidal just pow. That's the power of a hype. He was a huge favorite. Ever since then, it was a huge drop off. I mean, he just never captured it again. He now has moved up because he had all those problems cutting weight. Again, he got knocked out, and then he became real hesitant, right? He a wonderful striker when he lets it go. Problem is, he no longer lets it go. He's going to change things up. He's changed camps. We followed him closely in this camp. He's training with some killers, let's just say, and working on things, working on his wrestling, working on his striking still, swapping his striking for other people's wrestling, you know. So, but in essence, he's been really inactive. He's going to be a huge underdog here to Dricus. Dricus is going to have the height and reach. The guy is very awkward. He is an awkward striker. He comes from South Africa, and he's a very proud guy. And it's in that awkward striking where he catches people, and he seems to have this little touch of death. He's not necessarily the fastest person. Doesn't look the most intimidating, but at the end of the day, when he touches people, people seem to go down. People seem to go out, actually. So we have 2 huge strikers. We have Darren Till, who has the technique to beat someone like Dricus. Darren Till is going to have to come out here. He's going to have to put the volume together. Dricus is going to have the height and reach, and obviously has the power. If Till is going to have a suspect chin at 185 pounds, we're going to find out probably in this fight. So I am going to go ahead. I'm going to gather some more information. Right now, I have a pretty good lean on where I'm going to go, and I followed both fighters pretty closely, but you guys are going to have to tune in on Friday for that information. But this is going to be a banger, man. This is going to be a good fight. All right. You're going to want to tune into this fight. There's a reason why this one's on the main card. So let's get into your next fight. Now, this next fight is coming at you from the featherweight division, guys. This is a crazy fight. This is a great fight. We have Bryce Mitchell versus Ilia Topuria. We have Bryce Mitchell 15-0 against Ilia Topuria 12-0. Somebody's O has got to go. We have country BJJ versus traditional BJJ. We have KO power in Ilia Topuria. Do we have KO power in Bryce Mitchell? I don't know, right? We saw Bryce Mitchell. He's been working on his hands more. I love this kid, man. I love talking to this kid. This kid is full of energy. He's full of his own isms. And this guy, he could write his own dictionary with the way he speaks. But I love him, man. He reminds me of a lot of my friends back in New Orleans, even though he's an Arkansas boy. But just that old country boy. You know what I'm saying? He's got that country BJJ. The guy is special on the mat. He hits certain moves that not a lot of people hit. He works on certain things that not a lot of people work on. Normally, Bryce Mitchell is a smaller guy, but in this fight, he's going to actually be bigger. This fight is going to be at 145. And the biggest thing is whether or not Ilia Topuria is even going to show up. Ilia Topuria, he's a killer, man. The guy has amazing BJJ himself. He's from Georgia. At the end of the day, he's had a bunch of weight issues. He can't make the weight 145. This is going to be, I'm pretty sure this is the last time that the UFC is going to allow this guy to even try. He's had to pull out because of health issues, because of weight cuts. He's looking pretty good leading up, but I haven't seen him this week. And yeah, the guy's very, very confident, and he has a ton of power. He swings from the hip. He will swing constantly, swing crazy. He doesn't care about gas. He thinks he's going to get you out of there in the front half of the fight. So there's a lot of question marks on his part. There's a lot of question marks on Bryce Mitchell as well. But I mean, guys, when you have someone that's 15-0 and you have someone that's 12-0, they're going up against each other. Both of them have really good styles. Both of them are really good grapplers. One of them's a little bigger. I mean, it's going to be fun. But out of the gate, you can automatically see why the UFC put this together and why they set this one up. It's going to be a really, really good fight, and you guys are going to want to tune in. We're going to have all the information for you on Friday/Saturday in the write-up. You guys are going to want to pay attention to it. So the next fight we're going to talk about is going to be out of the heavyweight division. We have Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Chris Daukaus. Now, in the heavyweight division, you have Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Chris Daukaus. A banger of a fight. You guys know how heavyweights get down, right? Knockout. We saw it last week. Heavyweights. Knockout. Early, right? Usually. In this one, we have Jairzinho Rozenstruik, which we know what Jairzinho is at this point. He's a kickboxer, but very, very low volume. He looks for that one power shot. He's always looking to knock people out. In his last fight, you saw that he was looking to be way more active, and he was trying to be aggressive. He ended up losing that fight. We were against him in that fight only because there were a couple things that week that led up that had us going against him. But yeah, I mean, the guy's on a losing streak. It's time for him to put up or shut up. He trains pretty hard. I mean, pretty good trainer. He had a pretty good camp this time. At the end of the day, he does the same thing. He works on his own skills. He's going up against another guy, Chris Daukaus, who's on a losing streak himself. I've never been a huge fan of Chris Daukaus. He came in and won a lot of big fights that I thought he would have harder times with, and he knocked those guys out quickly. He's more of a boxer. He does have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. He can go to that, but he usually doesn't. He's usually just a stand-up guy. This is a guy who used to be an ex-police officer, quit his job, devoted himself, and then went on a losing streak to his surprise. And so he's asking himself a lot of questions coming into this fight. This week, I'm going to hone in on whether or not his mental game is there. Voice crack, by the way. Whether or not his mental game is there. And a lot of times with Chris Daukaus, you could tell he comes in with a confidence about him, but there's always a wonder, like, man, he's fighting this big, scary guy, right? And looking at him, you can tell that the mannerisms and his like, well, we're going to swing and we're going to see what happens. It changes sometimes with his mental. So right now, I'm really focused on Chris Daukaus' mental. I'm looking at Jairzinho Rozenstruik to see what he plans to do in this fight. We'll see what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, kickboxer versus boxer, one of them's low volume, one of them's higher volume, but is his chin there? Rozenstruik just got knocked out. Is his chin there? This is going to be things that are going to be answered this week on game plan. This fight's going to come down to game plan, I feel. How one fighter plans to approach the beginning of the fight to when it ends. So, yeah, man, banger of a fight, heavyweights. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun one. And on Friday, you guys can see who we got. All right, so this next fight should be fun. It's coming at you from the bantamweight division. We have Perrin versus Raul Rosas Jr. All right, let's talk about Raul Rosas Jr. for a minute. Raul is 18 years old. He is a young kid, but the kid is pretty good. Watching some gym tape on him, he's really good in the gym. He's 6-0 for a reason. He's a grappler. The good thing about Raul is he's got a really good fight IQ. He's got a really good head on his shoulders for being a kid. These 18-year-olds, sometimes they don't listen, or a lot of times they don't necessarily take to MMA very quickly. So, for instance, like a leg kick, you counter a leg kick with a jab, or when someone jabs, you hit them with a leg kick, vice versa. The fact of the matter is, a lot of times you'll see someone get hit, and then they think, oh, shoot, I need a jab. And it's this boom, this hesitation that causes them to miss, right? When you watch Rosas fight, he does a great job of mixing things. He does a great job of listening to his corner. He has a great fight IQ. He knows what he's good at, and he shoots for it, right? Literally. He is a takedown guy. He's going to be looking to grapple this whole fight. Now, Perrin, the guy's a vet. I mean, he's 10-6. He's a decent fighter. He's a good overall MMA fighter, and he's a hard worker. And he worked with some really good grapplers and wrestlers in this camp. He's working with the likes of Morono, who we know is a takedown fiend. That camp is kind of crazy, so you can't really, you got to take what they say with a grain of salt sometimes. But yeah, this is going to be a great fight. Does Perrin have the ability to withstand the young gun coming in? The young gun, is he going to be able to go ahead and do everything that he normally does? Like I said, he has a great fight IQ. Does that fight IQ necessarily translate when all those bright lights are there, when it's a bigger cage, when all the fans are yelling at you? We're going to have to see. We know Perrin has fought in bigger spots before. We know that he's a veteran at this point. And even though he's not necessarily as skilled in one skill set like Raul is, he is overall damn good. He's got a really good takedown defense, and that at the end of the day is what he's going to need in this fight. Raul, we know what he wants to do. He wants to grapple, take this fight to the ground, and get a submission. He's an excellent kid, but when you look at his record and you look at his past opponents, you have to wonder, like, is he running through them because they are who they are, and their records are like 1-0, 0-1. They're just very inexperienced. He came out in the Contender Series fight, and he had a little bit of trouble there. I just don't know against a veteran like Perrin. This week I'm gonna have to figure out if Raul is the goods. Does he have the ability to take Perrin down? And I'm gonna have to find out if Perrin, if all the stuff I've been hearing about him and his takedown defense and how great he is at all this stuff that I've been hearing about him, is it accurate? Is he going to be able to prove to me that he can do all the things that he's said that he can do? We're going to find out this week, but going to be a good fight. I think we'll probably have a bet on this fight. It's one of those fights that it's a show me spot for the young kid, but the young kid is really good, and the old vet is just okay. So it's one of those fights. It's going to be a good one. Let's get into your next fight. Your next fight. It's going to be, these next couple are going to be amazing. So let's get into it. All right, so the next fight is another show me spot, okay? We have Edmen Shahbazyan. This is going to be in the middleweight division, 185. Edmen Shahbazyan versus Dalcha Lungiambula. Dalcha champion, as I like to call him. I just call him champ because the guy, Lungiambula, is hard to say. But Edmen Shahbazyan, he is going to be the younger fighter here. He's coming in only 25 years old. Both these guys are gassers. Edmen was known as a hype train who he didn't necessarily fight the best competition, but he was doing really well with the competition the UFC was handing him. So the UFC, I mean, just in a couple fights and in a pretty good wins, he was being managed by Ronda Rousey. Ronda was pushing his career to move a certain trajectory, and it was a fast one, maybe way too fast for him. And we saw Edmen come in and just sheet the bed, pretty much. They put him in main events, and we found out that gas tank. We knew it was an issue before, but he pushed through it. One time he gassed very, very badly. Got hurt a few times, but he had a takedown advantage, and he just took the guy down repeatedly, even into the third round. Ended up winning that fight barely, and it was then that the cardio was in question. And then we saw it pan out. First 5-round fight didn't go so well. These 5-round fights for him don't go well. So he ended up moving, changing camps. He's in a better place now. But he's coming off of 3 losses in a row. He's got to show up in this fight. He has the boxing to show up. He has to stay defensively sound. He does a pretty good job of doing that. He would be a really great fighter because he does have those takedowns. He does have the ability to box someone's head off. He does seem to have a pretty good chin, especially early on. A lot of these fighters, their chin goes the minute they get tired. So they become really defensively just devoid. And when they do that, their hands come down, and when these mannerisms of when they get hit get dramatized, and a ref ends up stopping it a lot of times. So it's easier to knock someone out who's gassed than to knock someone out who is fresh. Let's just say that. And Edmen is one of these gassers that later on the fight he seems to quit. Another one of these guys, it's a great hammer, horrible nail. Dalcha Lungiambula, the champ, as he likes to call himself, Dalcha champion. He's another one of these gassers, moved down to 185, fought as high as 205. I mean, he's fought really, really high up there, but he's on a 3-fight losing streak as well. I mean, the guy's losing to Marc-Andre Barriot. He's losing to Cody Brundage. Soriano, I mean, that one's understandable. The guy hits like a Mack truck. But at the end of the day, Dalcha is a gasser who looks like a deer in headlights when he's out there, only because I swear when these guys cut as much weight as he's cutting, there's this fog state that they never get out of. And he's one of these guys that he gets in that fog state, but when he's not in it, he's pretty good. But you'll see in that first round, he'll look pretty tough and he'll look the part, right? He's very muscular, very big. He's going to go in there, and he's this judo player, so a lot of times he just swings from the hip. He has a lot of that power, and he has the ability to wrap you up and take you down. In this fight, I mean, it's going to be a pretty good match. Edmen's going to have the boxing advantage. Dalcha's going to have the power advantage. When it comes to the mat, I mean, it's going to be fun to watch. I do expect this to hit the ground eventually. At first, they're going to come out swinging. I expect Edmen to come in and push Dalcha against the cage and try to get him down, follow a pretty good game plan. And Dalcha, I expect him to power out of things early. And the later this fight goes, we're going to find out who the real quitter is out of these two. Both of them have shown to quit. Both of them have shown to gas. We're going to find out here which one has the bigger heart. And honestly, they both need to show up because both of them are coming in with 3 losses. So tune in to find out on Friday which way we're going to go and if we're going to go in this fight. You know, sometimes in these fights we pick, like, for instance, Dalcha by knockout in round 2 if we end up really catching a feeling and getting some really great info and watching some really good tape. But when we go that route, it's usually hits. So look out for some of that in the write-up and the conclusions for sure. This is one of those fights that I may not necessarily target, not yet, unless I hear something, but I may not necessarily target hardcore. So, all right, let's get into your next fight. Your next fight it's another good one, man. These fights are... This end card, I know the main event got killed with Yuri and Glover, but man, this next fight is good. We have in the 185-pound division, middleweight, we have Chris Curtis versus Joaquin Buckley. All right, so this next fight, out of the middleweight division, 185 pounds, we have Chris Curtis versus Joaquin Buckley. This is going to be another banger of a fight. It's going to be a good fight, man. I love me some Joaquin Buckley. Both Kyle and I love some Joaquin Buckley. We have bet Joaquin Buckley by knockout so many times, and I've seen some of his tickets. He's seen some of mine. It's crazy. Even if we stay away, I'll put in the write-up, like, might want to sprinkle Joaquin Buckley by knockout. And If you saw some of our tickets, you'd be surprised because Joaquin Buckley is a knockout machine. The guy has power for days. He's coming off of a unanimous decision loss, but in that fight, he's been changing up his style recently. So even though he was powerful and just swinging before. He was just going crazy, knocking people out. He had a few highlight crazy knockouts and then got knocked out himself pretty quickly by someone that a lot of people were surprised about. I wasn't, but a lot of people were surprised about it. So he changed his style up. He's now shooting for takedowns. He's working his wrestling. He's working on trying to make himself a better mixed martial artist. In this fight, he's going to swing big. I mean, he's going to be winging them from the start. He's going to size him up, measure up, and he's going to be winging shots. And this comes down to his power versus the durability of Chris Curtis. And I love the durability of Chris Curtis up at this weight class. Chris fights around at different weight classes. This one, it is kind of surprising that both of them, I mean, they're evenly sized, even though Chris, I don't necessarily feel like this is the best weight class for Chris Curtis, but Chris is yeah, man, he's pretty durable at this weight class, and he's extraordinarily experienced. I mean, he's coming in with 29 wins, 9 losses, and in those losses, he shows a really good chin. The problem is now he's 35 years old. This is durability going to stay there. I've seen this guy, what he normally does, he comes in there, he takes pictures, right? He goes, for round one is his ability to assess what you bring to the table. He's going to assess your power in that round. He's going to assess everything. He's going to throw some things out there. And then you're going to see him turn it up towards the middle, towards the end of the first round. And in there, he starts moving forward. He starts scooting with that little bit of a Philly shell that he does. He'll start scooting forward more. And you'll see his little feet skirt when he feels he has a read on you. And then he unloads pretty big shots. And so it's going to be the power of Joaquin Buckley early. Is he going to be able to surprise Chris Curtis early and do something that not a lot of power strikers have been able to do with Chris Curtis? He stays pretty defensively sound, even though he gets hit. He rolls with it, let's say. So it's going to be that power coming Chris Curtis's way, and Chris Curtis assessing at first, and then it's going to be Chris Curtis unloading. It's going to be up to Joaquin Buckley to therefore change things up and shoot for takedowns at that point. Look to mix things up and throw Chris Curtis off his game. That's what Joaquin's going to do. Now, this week, I'm going to find out if Joaquin is ready for this, if his mind's even ready. This is a fighter who comes in usually mentally strong, but when he comes in with a little bit of a burden or a horrible camp or an injury, he will fold. So it's going to be a great matchup, man. This is going to be a great fight. Again, Friday, I'll let you guys know on which way we side on this and if there's going to be one of those somebody by KO kind of bets. So I'll let you guys know, but this is going to be a banger of a fight. You guys are going to want to tune in, and you guys are going to want these write-ups for sure. All right, the next fight is another great one. We have Billy Quarantillo versus Alexander Hernandez in 145. Alexander Hernandez dropping down to 145 pounds. Woo! We're going to see what we're going to get with him. All right, so your next matchup is going to be coming at you in the featherweight division, hopefully. We have Billy Quarantillo versus Alexander Hernandez. Billy Quarantillo is, man, this guy's got gas for days. Really good fighter, can be hittable, will take a shot to give a shot, and will also allow himself to be taken down sometimes in order to get some things from bottom. I think more or less what it comes down to, I don't think he necessarily allows himself to be taken down. I think he's a momentum-based fighter. I don't necessarily mean momentum in the sense of like, he is a momentum-based fighter in the grand scheme of things. But in essence, what I'm talking about is in that moment, he goes with the flow of everything, kind of a flowy fighter, you might be able to say. So he goes with the flow of things, and sometimes that has him going down to the ground, and he'll flow down, and he'll try to grab a leg, and sometimes people will grab him and take him down, and he tries to use that momentum to either transition something out of it or to try to reverse the position. He's one of those kind of fighters, very scrappy, very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. His limbs are a little bit different, so he hits certain chokes and certain things from different positions, and he is pretty sneaky with it. He's going to go up against Alexander Hernandez, a powerful guy. I say he's going to go up against Alexander Hernandez, but let's be honest, Alexander Hernandez is looking to drop down to 145 pounds. The guy was huge at 155 pounds. I can see something happen in the week where they end up going to like catch weight of 150 pounds or something, contracting. But even if Hernandez can do it, he's going to be losing some muscle. I've already seen him this camp. He looks very, very thin. He looks like he's losing some of that muscle, like some of that weight cut is going into those muscles. So is he going to lose some of that power? He was already known as a gasser, kind of as a gasser, up a weight class. Is he going to be able to maintain a gas tank? Last I spoke with Alexander Hernandez, the guy is very, very confident. He is big into not necessarily false self-belief, but like self-belief, like believing in yourself, like pushing it, telling yourself that you're going to hit something, or there's a goal that you're going to hit, and there's nothing that's going to stop you from hitting it. Even if you're not ready for that goal, Alexander Hernandez will throw himself into the fire, even if he knows mentally he's not ready, because he believes in himself that much. He's lost some of that belief because he's on this weird losing streak, or streak, should I say. It's win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. And it's this yo-yo back and forth. Sometimes he looks amazing. Sometimes he comes out and shits the bed, right? But in this fight, him dropping down is intriguing. We're going to have to see how he looks this week and how he looks on the scales and how he rehydrates, if he even makes it there, if they don't contract this to be like 150 pounds or even 155 pounds. I know Billy's been cutting weight, so I don't see that necessarily flying unless Billy really, really wants to fight. But at the end of the day, you're looking at the power of Hernandez versus the durability of Billy and the gas of Billy versus the lack of gas on Hernandez's side. So in this matchup, I expect Billy to be the big favorite, or at least a favorite. We're going to have to see this week how Hernandez does. We don't know. We don't necessarily know how this fight's going to go now, but hey, it's going to be a good fight. Billy is crazy gas for days and loves it when the crowd's there. When the crowd's there for Billy, he is going to show out. Hernandez is another guy that takes the crowd in and super powerful at the beginning. We'll see if that power translates, and if it does, I expect him to be very, very powerful at this weight class. We'll see what happens. So, all right, guys, let's get into your next fight. Your next fight is an intriguing fight because we have Ovince St. Preux. Ovince St. Preux's coming in. He's had a few bout changes this camp. I know Ovince really well. He's an ex-Tennessee football player. Yeah, let's get into it. All right, so your next fight is coming at you from the light heavyweight division. We have one of my old good friends, Ovince St. Preux versus Antonio Tricali. All right, so let's talk about OSP a little bit. I told you guys he went to the University of Tennessee, ex-football player, really great guy, really great in the community in Knoxville. Knoxville loves him. He definitely has a home there, and he's beloved. OSP is a really tall, rangy, lanky fighter. If I'm being honest, OSP trained at somewhere in Knoxville, and that place in Knoxville did a great job of pushing him forward and advancing him and teaching him how to utilize the tools he has in order to make his way. Because before, OSP was losing a ton. He just wasn't ready. And so they taught him how to use his tools. And so you see that left kick come out. You see him swinging with more power. You see his Von Flue choke, where people are now calling it the Von Preux choke, right? Because they taught him certain things. And then after that, he didn't necessarily progress like many people expected. There were some training issues, some injury issues, but really what I wanted him to do was move camps at that point, and I hate to say that because I love that camp in Knoxville. I love the people there. They're good people. But at the end of the day, I feel like he should have gone in order to advance his skills a little bit, do some cross training, go overseas a little bit, but he didn't. He stayed put, and in turn, he sort of he kept utilizing his tools, and he won some fights, he lost some fights, but he maybe could have been better, right? He came into this a little late after playing football, after having a ton of injuries, after accumulating all that stuff. So, but at the end of the day, still a striker. He's got some Brazilian jiu-jitsu in there. He's really good on the mat. And he's fighting this kid who I don't really know too much about. I have to admit, and I admitted in the write-ups, when I don't know anyone, when I don't know about someone, when I don't know them or their camp that well, right? I'll put that in the write-up, and the write-up will be pretty short. In this fight, Tricoli, I followed his career when he was going towards the Contender Series. And then what I figured would happen happened, right? He popped for an illegal substance in the Contender Series because the guy was just an animal. I mean, he went in there and did some work, right? He ended up winning by neck crank. So the guy was possibly juiced, right? Allegedly, maybe. So that ended up being a no contest because of an illegal substance, and then he went on to beat someone else, right? So the guy is a grappler. I know his competition isn't that great. He's no longer on the juice because USADA would have caught him. So, I mean, that's why OSP is at least like he's taking this fight and feels okay about it. But at the end of the day, this guy's huge. This guy's 6'5". He's coming in fighting at 205. He hasn't fought in over a year or possibly a year now. Ovince St. Preux coming in. I mean, the guy's almost 40 years old. Hasn't really progressed like I would have liked him. Felt like the better years are behind him. He's been looking pretty bad in fights. He's been looking a little slower. He's working everything to combat that, though. So that's what's a little bit discouraging when you see him doing the road work, when you see him come in healthy and in shape, and then you watch him out there and he just looks a little bit slower. The same techniques are coming out the exact same way they did before, and there's nothing hidden there. There's no evolution. I see in this fight, we're going to see some of his grappling skills. Tricoli is a grappler at heart, but I don't know what to expect out this guy. I guess we'll find out a little bit more about him this week, but he himself is only 32 years old. I mean, he's a little bit older, coming from Brazil. Like I said, I followed him earlier on. Pretty promising grappler. Thought he was on the Contender Series a little early. Looked at him. Was like, dang, kid. Are you still in cycle? Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what he took. I didn't look into it after that. I wrote him off after that because I was like, there's no way he's going to go into the UFC. He fought somewhere else on the Brazilian scene, I'm pretty sure, and then the UFC picked him up. So we'll see what happens. This is a show me spot. Ovince St. Preux coming off of a win, and this kid is coming off of a win as well, but his UFC debut, I guess, if you don't want to count the Contender Series, smaller cage, less people. This is going to be his first real big test, right? It's going to be a fun one. And it's going to be good. All right, let's get into your next fight. All right, so in your next fight, you have Erik Silva versus TJ Brown, the featherweight division. What can I say? We've had some ups and downs with TJ Brown. We've bet on TJ Brown. It's been successful. We've bet against TJ Brown. It's been successful. We've bet on TJ Brown, and he's laid an egg horribly, right? So what kind of TJ Brown are we going to get this time? Well, TJ Brown is known as more or less an athlete, right? He's been seen as a gasser in his earlier career, but he's an overall just MMA fighter. He comes from another sports background, and that translated into him working hard and focusing on MMA wrestling and doing a really good job of being a proficient against the cage MMA wrestler. But the problem with TJ Brown is he just lacks smarts. Like, the guy is just not the smartest fighter. In there, he'll go ahead and he'll be winning a fight, and all of a sudden he'll shoot for a takedown when the guy's rocked, or he will go to his back when he has position to possibly, all he has to do is switch his head position and he would have the advantage in order to get the takedown. Instead, he does the wrong thing, jumps to his back, will jump guillotine when it's not there. He just does things that just will drive you crazy. He'll be looking great early on and then gas in the first round or second round. And then you're like what happened to the DJ in the first round? Like, you were murdering this guy. So that's what we're going up against with TJ Brown. Really good MMA wrestling. He's going to need that here. Pretty good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when he switched camps. And again, it all comes down to that fight IQ. When he switched camps, the camp he went with ended up really focusing on just listening. Listen to us and do what we say. He did that, and he won some fights. And last fight, he didn't listen so well, and he lost. So is it a regression? We don't know, right? We're going to find out in this fight. But at the end of the day, wrestler, pretty good MMA wrestling, pretty good sound defensively when it comes to submissions. against a guy who's making his UFC debut, and Erik Silva. Erik Silva's coming in 9-1. He has the hype behind him, making his debut. He's a grappler. But when you look into the record of Erik Silva, you'll find that Erik Silva hasn't necessarily fought the best competition. His level of competition hasn't been great. He's done well with the competition, but when the level is barrel bottom of the barrel, I mean, what do you expect from a guy who has UFC capabilities possibly? Like, you expect him to go out there and murder these guys. And I wish he would have maybe taken a step up. The guy he fought on the Contender Series was more of a kickboxer, right? So he's a grappler who's going to be looking to get this to the ground and submit TJ Brown. TJ Brown is pretty good submission defense and is a grappler himself. So at the end of the day, grappler versus grappler, maybe TJ keeps his standing more. He can scramble to the top, maybe get his hands going. Again, the issue with TJ is outside of all those other issues we talked about, him showing up, him not showing up. He's been known to be chin checked by the weirdest shots. He'll get dropped by a jab, or he gets hit with a straight cross that I think should rock anyone, and he eats it, right? And then he'll get hit with this check hook that just brings him to the ground. So I don't expect Silva to come out here and try to strike with him. I expect TJ to maybe try to keep this standing and try to maybe get this on the ground himself from top position. I expect Erik Silva to be shooting takedowns and trying to get this down on the ground. We're going to find out if Erik Silva is UFC level with this fight. We should see TJ being the vet here, but the line was Erik Silva as a favorite originally, and TJ Brown was the underdog. TJ Brown is an underdog. I mean, normally it's a pretty good bet against a newcomer, just on paper when you look at it. But now that the lines swap back and forth, it's going to have to be looked at really, really closely to see where the advantages are here. So I'll let you guys know on Friday. I expect TJ to tell me all the things, all the good things about his camp, and I expect Erik Silva to his camp to be very, very confident. At the end of the day, very, very equal, except for the fact that one has UFC experience and the other one doesn't. The other one might be a fraud, the fact that he only fought very, very inexperienced guys or people that had records that were just bloated themselves, but when you looked into it, it's like, yeah, they're not that great of a fighter. So is Erik Silva going to come out here and take down TJ Brown and submit him? That's what he wants to do. We'll find out the end of the week on Friday. I'm going to let you guys know about this fight for sure. And maybe we'll even give this one out for free. We'll see. All right, guys. So let's get into your next fight. Your next fight is going to come. Oh, it's going to be some smaller guys, right? Some flyweights. We're looking at Daniel Da Silva versus Vinicius Salvador. The second to last fight on this card is going to be Daniel Da Silva versus Vinicius Salvador, coming at you in the flyweight division. Both these guys are kill or be killed type fighters. You got Daniel Da Silva. He's got 3 fights in the UFC. He's 0-3. This is a show me spot for Daniel Da Silva. He's a Charles Oliveira guy. You saw it in my first write-up. I always said I thought Daniel Da Silva, he was an exciting prospect, and I thought he got in on merit, but also because he knows Charles Oliveira. And at the time, Charles Oliveira was the champion. The guy is the definition of what it means to not be UFC material just yet. I don't know. Every time I talk to Daniel, he's relatively in high spirits. He's always very confident. He's a confident individual. He has a lot of crazy techniques, spinning techniques. He practices all these spinning techniques in the gym. But at the end of the day, in some of these fights, you see him go out there and just quit. It's almost like he's not a good nail. He's a great hammer. When he's the hammer, he can finish. But when it comes down to being the nail, not a great nail. Now he's going to go up against Vinicius Salvador. Vinicius Salvador is going to be a little bit bigger than him. He's a hard hitter, but this is another guy who there's a lot of unknowns, right? He's never been in the UFC. He fought on the Contender Series, and I think it was an underdog in the Contender Series, actually. It actually surprised everyone because coming into the Contender Series, he didn't show that level of fight IQ, that level of violence. And the Contender Series is interesting because it does bring out some of the best type of fighting. In the Contender Series, Dana White is sitting there watching you, right? With the matchmakers who have hired you to come onto the show. For these guys, a lot of times it's the most money they've ever made, or the most money that they've seen in a while. So they go up and they know that they have to get a finish. With Dana White right there, they have to get a finish in order to get a contract, in order to better their lives. So they come out, and a lot of times they'll fight smarter. If anything, the biggest motivator is money when it comes to getting better. And there's no better motivator than, I'm going to get in the UFC if I win this fight. I'm going to go out here and show out. Now, what does that translate to for the second fight? We've seen a lot of times these contender series guys come out and then lay an egg in the second fight. We've also seen where they've done really well. Going into the camp of Salvador, I'm going to let you guys know on Friday what I think, but the guy hits really, really hard, and he's a big dude. I'm watching him hit pads, and I'm pretty impressed. I think this is going to be a banger of a fight. I think this is going to be a really good fight, and I think we're probably going to end up targeting a bet on this fight, possibly. Some lines are still not out on anything on this card, but yeah, I really like this fight. Something to look forward to. I think it's a good fight. Now let's get into your last fight of the night, or the last fight for this. So now let's get into that first fight of this card. Now, the first fight of the night is coming at you in the bantamweight division. We have Cameron Simon versus Steven Kaslow. So we know we have Cameron Simon on one side. This guy's from South Africa. He's a guy that the UFC is looking at, has been looking at for a while, an exciting prospect, but the level of competition hasn't necessarily been there. So not a lot of people know about this kid. But in camp, I'm catching reports that he's a beast. He's a killer in the room, and now it's time to translate that into a bigger stage. I mean, the guy went 6-0 on the South African scene. See, that's the issue here, is that the level of competition that I told you about before, we don't necessarily know if this guy has been battle tested, right? So now the UFC is bringing him in, never fought on the big stage before, and we're going to see what's going to happen, right? And they're putting him up against Steven Kaslow. Now, we know a lot about Steven. Steven's out of Florida, a 10th Planet BJJ guy, and we know a lot about Southern 10th Planet BJJ guys, right? Now, they're putting him up against Steven Kaslow out of Florida. Steven, we know Steven really well. He has a BJJ background. He's a 10th Planet guy, and the 10th Planet system over there in Florida is a little bit different than the 10th Planet system everywhere else. They go back to very traditional 10th Planet techniques and 10th Planet things, right? So we know what he's going to bring, and the only issue with Steven in this fight is that he's coming in on very, very short notice. Cameron Simon was actually supposed to fight someone else. So in comes Steven. But I tell you guys all the time with these newcomers. So we have two reasons to bet on newcomers. And pretty much those are the only two reasons. One, they have to be the real deal Holyfield, right? We have to know that these guys are going to be on point on the night of the fight. I have to have extreme confidence that they're going to be ready. Or two, there has to be such a mismatch and information given to us that, hey man, look, the possibility of this fighter winning is great. And these are the reasons why. And that's why we have the write-up. We're going to let you know everything about those fighters and what's going on in that instant on Friday. But in this matchup, I mean, it's two newcomers, right? Low-level MMA, don't know what to expect from them. We don't know how these bright lights are going to affect them. And, I mean, it's going to be a good fight, a good little fight for the beginning of the night. Now, if you like this kind of content, if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, let us know down below. Hit us up in the comments. And I want you to comment down below, Jan. Jan. Let me know if you're still listening. If I see Jans down there, I'll know you're still listening. So go ahead, put Jan down in the comments below. Let me know you're still listening. Let me know what you're excited for in this fight. And again, if you like this, make sure you hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the video, and hit that post notifications. That post notification tells you guys every time we set out a video, whether it be a UFC early look like this one, or whether it be a free play or a big promo. Like, you never know what we have. We always have something special. We always fight for you guys to make sure we have special things for you guys. So hit that notification button, subscribe, like, hit the notification. Let me know down below. Comment down below, Jan. That's the word that's going to let me know you made it all the way to the end. This was a longer video where a lot of information was thrown at you, so I appreciate you sticking in there with me. Go ahead, comment down below, like, subscribe, hit that thumbs up. Trust me, Saturday is going to be a good day to win, baby. We're going to do it.